This conference will now be recorded.
All right, folks, so good morning and thank you for attending today. Today we're going to be looking at chapter 35, plant nutrition. So let's begin by going through this chapter here. I'm going to come back to this slide in just a few minutes. So here we have, as far as nutritional requirements are concerned for plants. So tissues of most plants, right, comprise primarily of water, 90%. That's amazing. Recall that we're talking about epidermal, we're talking about vascular and ground tissue, right? These are the three types of tissues present within plant, and each having their specific functions and such. As far as the epidermal tissue is more the outer layer of the tissue of the plant. The vascular tissue is moving and transporting water and minerals, nutrients, whether it's the xylem for the water and the minerals, and for nutrients as far as the phloem is concerned. And then we also have the ground tissue, which comprises the surrounding tissue of the inner tissues that will be present within the supporting of the ground tissue and of the epidermal tissue present in the dermal tissue. Okay, you'll see here, as far as by growing plants in hydroponic culture, I'm going to see this in just a moment. Julius von Sachs deduced at least 6 essential plant nutrients. Now we're going to see that there are more than just the 6, but we have mnemonics that you'll learn for this. And so for this chapter, part of what I want you to do is be able to know the essential and non-essential nutrients. Okay, that's just, and again too, there's only going to be like 10 questions from this chapter on the final exam. Okay, so chapter 35, plant nutrition, just taking a few, just as I told you earlier there. And so I'm going to be posting also your final exam review by tomorrow. Mother's Day weekend, it was just a little bit too hectic, so I'm not finished with it yet. So I'll have it posted for you by tomorrow evening. Okay, so sorry about that, but you'll have that for your final exam. The review will be posted in documents and resources. Okay, and you'll be good to go with that. Right, and it'd be like an outline, like I did for this test that's coming up this week for plants. I posted that guideline, that outline for you to focus on and to review regarding your test number 3. So you'll see here these nutrients present: nitrogen, potassium, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, and sulfur. These were deduced, and let's just show you as far as what went on with how he deduced this and figured this out. The nutrient solution is refreshed regularly. Air is bubbled into the supply to supply oxygen to the roots. Okay, so you'll see here basic components of this hydroponic apparatus. Here's the nutrient solution where the roots are present. You'll see here that there's something present here as far as for support of the plants, and then air being pumped into the system. Now, know that there are these types of systems also that will have fish be a part of this, so that folks can actually harvest the fish as well as the plants, and the fish and what they do as far as with their waste product also help to provide nutrients for the plants. It's there's some pretty quite elaborate setups that can be done with these hydroponics and such. And I don't know if anybody is anybody interested in really going on further with plant biology and looking at that as far as part of what a career that they might want to do. I don't know. How about you? Just stop sharing for a moment. Does anybody see that as far as something that you might be wanting to focus into and get into, or not? I don't know. Okay. All right. So just thought I'd throw it out there and just see. All right, let's go back into our PowerPoint here. And we're seeing here as far as, let's go on, here we go. So procedure for identifying elements essential for proper plant nutrition. So you'll have this lettuce plant here, right? Growing in complete nutrient solution as far as those nutrients that they feel are necessary for life and for healthy growth, okay? Then what we're gonna do is put the plant into a solution lacking one element. If the plant thrives, that test element may not be essential. So trying to determine what elements are essential or not. Plant grows abnormally, test element may be essential, right? So that makes sense. And this can be a time-consuming method of doing this, but it can work. Now, you'll see here as far as the essential elements, right? Necessary for normal growth and reproduction, okay? Very important. Can't be functionally replaced by a different element which has one or more roles in plant metabolism, the actual functioning of what goes on with the plant. Okay? So with enough sunlight and 17 essential elements, plants can synthesize all the compounds they need. And so we're going to look at macro and micronutrients. Okay, so the macronutrients, 9, right, incorporate into the tissues in relatively large amounts. The micronutrients, just as with humans, right, if anybody's ever taken vitamins and such, you'll see the different nutrients and vitamins that are available present within like a multivitamin, and you'll see some that are in only trace amounts, small amounts, and then some that are in larger quantity because we need them in a more larger quantity. They'd be considered macro instead of micronutrients. So let's take a look here. So the macronutrients, right? So carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, the main components of lipids and carbohydrates, right? And these carbon chains and such to comprise the fats and carbohydrates make up 96% of the plant's dry mass, okay? Nitrogen essential for proteins and nucleic acids, okay? And so nitrogenous wastes are present in, like, so when you think of for humans, as far as in our urine and in our fecal material, they're present as far as a protein metabolism, okay? And nucleic acids, why would you say that? Well, understand that nucleic acids are present within all cells, all living cells, right? They're present within the nucleus as well as the mitochondria. You'll see here phosphorus used in nucleic acids, ATP, right? The energy currency of the cells of the human body as well as cells of other living organisms, and phospholipids. Phospholipids, a major component for the plasma membrane of cells, okay? Potassium functions include enzyme activation, mechanisms that control the opening and closing of the stomata, right? And we would represent potassium by the letter K, recall that. Calcium, sulfur, magnesium, also macronutrients. So let's look at here as far as a mnemonic. Now, I did not create this mnemonic. I had gotten it from this YouTube video. So, you know, you have to determine whatever's going to work for you, but I think this is kind of a pretty easy one. Hopkins is called a mega college, okay? So Johns Hopkins, right, university. So we would say, and it's not really a college, it's a university, but, you know, this is just something that if it's going to help you. So you'll see here, hydrogen, oxygen, P is for phosphorus, K is for potassium, right? Ca for calcium, M for magnesium, and C for carbon. Okay, so if that works for you, I hope it does. If not, then you can, you know, I over the years I've done my own mnemonics and such, but this is not for one of them. Again, plant biology and general bio is not really my primary field of focus, so I don't spend a whole lot of time in this aspect of the biological sciences and such. So I haven't really created any mnemonics for this, but this is a pretty good one actually, to be honest. So it's pretty catchy, like Hopkins is called a mega college. So you can think it out. And what I would do in order to like remember this and figure out the macronutrients would be to, you know, you write it a few times and you have to understand the elements as far as what they represent and such, but pretty easy, okay? Now, as far as the micronutrients are concerned, right? So you'll see here the essential micronutrients include copper, chlorine, nickel, iron, boron, manganese, zinc, and molybdenum, okay? Now, you'll see in the next few slides here, right, that it's talking to you about what's going on as far as deficiencies, as far as functions and such. Folks, I'm not going to ask you to like within 1 week's time process this information and memorize all these functions and deficiencies. I'm not going to ask you to do that, okay? But I do want you to know, I do want you to be able to come away from this chapter with knowing the macronutrients and the micronutrients, okay? And you'll see here as far as, so many C4 plants require sodium, so that's a part of one of the an additional micronutrients. Just know these right here as far as these primary ones that we have here of the micronutrients. So they are nickel, zinc, copper, Cu. So you do have to remember as far as what the elements represent as far as their having here as far as Ni for nickel, Zn for zinc, copper, Cu. So magnesium is M, right? Mg, right? So let's go back for a moment, right? So magnesium, Mg, that's a macronutrient. Micronutrient, manganese, right? Mn. Chlorine, Cl, iron is Fe. So these are pretty common, like Cu for copper, iron, Fe. You just have to remember that and commit that to memory. Boron, B, and molybdenum, Mo. Okay, so I just followed, I made a variation for this as far as from the YouTube video for the mnemonic, but Nick Zink is coming to class on February morning. And so if this helps you, great. If it just helps you just to write them out in, or I don't know, whatever's going to work for you folks. But I will, on the test, on the final exam for this chapter, a couple of the 10 questions will be on macro and micronutrients. Okay, so I'll do, a minimum 3 questions or so. Okay, this way, that's 30% of the questions from this chapter will come from just knowing whether we have micro or macronutrients. Actually, you know what? I'll do 4 questions. How's that? This way, it'll make it really worth your while to focus on. You're going to put a little bit of time studying this and remembering this. And this is something that I would like you to come away from this class with, knowing micro and macronutrients for plants and such. So we'll do 4 questions on the final exam from just these studying the macro and micronutrients. Okay. Now you'll see here as far as the C4 and such. And so I want to remind you all and just show you all that as far as C3, C4, CAM plants. Okay, so CAM plants, CAM plants are, you would think along the lines of plants that are in very hot environments, humid environments, hot environments, tropical environments. So think along the lines of anything from like pineapple to cactus and such, CAM plants, okay? Approximately 10% of the plants within the world, right? As far as C3 plants, so C3 deals with, and let me just show you for a moment here regarding, and I'm not going to focus on, I'm just showing you this for you to understand as far as when you see these terms used, what they remind you as far as what they represent. Let's see here, yeah. So it deals as far as C3 and C4, as far as the carbons, as far as a 3-carbon or a 4-carbon that's produced as a result of the photosynthetic process and such. And so, and I have this website here that's pretty cool as far as, I'll share this with you, just showing you just a very basics regarding C3 and C4 plants. You can just, I'll share a link to you with this, okay? And so that you can review this and go over this if you'd like. But again, too, I'm not going to be focusing on asking questions regarding the differences, but I just wanted to show you when you see that there, so you're not confused regarding, but know that primarily it's C3 plants. Almost 90% of the C3 of the plants present in the world are these C3 type plants, okay? And just see here as far as wheat, barley, peppers, fruit, rice, tomatoes, these are all considered C3 plants. C4 would be a matter of like corn, would be a matter of sugarcane, sorghum. Let me just show you what an image of. Okay. There we go. And it's a grain and such. And so here you're looking at sorghum. Okay, so very much part of what's present as far as the foods that are consumed in the world today. And you'll see here as far as those are considered C4 plants, and less than 1% of the plants population in the world would be considered C4 plants. Okay, and again, it has to do with 4-carbon or 3-carbon produced regarding the whole photosynthesis process and such. And so I'm not asking you to focus on that or memorize that, but just I'm showing you that as far as when you see C3, C4, and CAM. And CAM I mentioned to you earlier there in other chapters also regarding cacti and such, representative of that group. So here we have, as far as you'll see, as far as elements are concerned, and again, their functions and such. And so, yeah, we know as far as what hydrogen and oxygen, the importance of realizing, water needs to be present in order for the plant to survive and to thrive, and needed for the processes that actually the xylem sap and the phloem sap. Water is a large component, as well as the fact that we just saw in one of the first slides here today, 90% of the tissues present, 90% of water is present in the tissues of all of these plants that we're discussing today and have been discussing. And so you're seeing here as far as the different components. Again, I'm not going to ask you the functions. I'm not going to ask you deficiencies present within. We're going to move on, okay? But it's there for you to look at and to review on your own. You'll see here as far as nutrient deficiencies, I'm just going to mention to you a couple that I would like you to know, okay, as far as iron, magnesium, and nitrogen. So these three, as far as that I've highlighted here, I'm going to ask regarding of you, okay, to know. You'll see that the nutrient content of soils is an important factor in determining which plants will grow well in a given location. So I live in a farm area community, and when I was practicing as a chiropractor, I was a member of the Lions Club in my community, and predominantly it was made up of, the membership was farmers. And so I got a chance to know farmers and treat them, as well as become friends with them and such. And interesting to see really how challenging it is to be a farmer, and how to rotating your crops and determining what type of fertilizers are needed and present for whatever you're growing, as far as whether it's corn or whether it's for soybean and such. And just quite interesting, actually. I still don't have a green thumb, but that's okay. I can appreciate those who do, and quite interesting, actually. Like I said, quite complex, and really multi-million-dollar operations. These farmers, now not all of them, but many do. Let me ask this. Just bring out for just a moment here. Is anybody in the class a relative of a farmer at all, or have friends that are farmers? Because I know in Warren County we do still have quite a few farms and such, but anyone at all? Okay, Tony. Tony, is it in your family or just a relative, or your uncle and grandfather? Okay. Oh, Angie, you also, your family? Cool. Let's see here. And Christian, right? My aunt and grandfather. All right, very cool. So yeah, and oh, Angie, you live on a dairy farm. Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. So quite a few of the gentlemen that I was friends with were dairy farmers, and that's definitely not an easy situation, as far as waking up early in the morning and making sure that they get milked. And wow, cool stuff, though. You know, what do they say? No farms, no food, right? So, vital, important role that they play. Cool. And you know what, Angie? Cool. That's nice. And I would tell you, so my wife had horses when she was growing up, and we had horses for quite a few years, and rabbits and such. Cows. We have cows that are going to wait. Oh wait, I got to read that. That looks pretty interesting. We have cows that are going to be starred in movies. Angie, how so, Angie? What's up with that, as far as that's concerned? Is it going to be in a movie coming out, as far as some kind of drama or something, or just? Now you've got me, my interest peaked here before we move on. Actually, I love movies. I don't know if you guys like going to the movies when back in the day, but watching movies, that's something that's always fun for us. So. All right, Angie, I'll wait for your response, but let's move. We'll move on. But very cool. Thank you for sharing, guys. Appreciate it. Oh yeah, we saw a post that we were looking for show cows, and we auditioned them. Oh, how funny is that? Well, good luck. Nice. So you'll see here now, and folks, like, do we need to state this? But you get this, right? Plants differ in their quantity of each nutrient they require. Each plant, they're unique, absolutely, right? And so what an adequate amount for one plant could be harmful to another. Again, we get that. That makes sense. Plants that are deficient in one or more of the essential elements. So these are the signs. So you should know. So this slide right here also will definitely be on the final exam, as far as a question regarding deficiencies and such, right? And probably about like 2 questions, because I'll ask you like a general question regarding this, as far as what are some of the symptoms. So I'm even giving it to you, folks. Like, so symptoms: stunted growth, abnormal leaf color, dead spots, abnormal stems, wouldn't this make sense as far as it's going to affect the actual anatomy of the plant as a result of not receiving the proper nutrients? Yeah, that absolutely makes total sense. And then this slide next here, right? So as far as iron, magnesium, and nitrogen, I'll ask you a question regarding that. So there now we have like 6 out of the 10 questions right now that I've already given you as far as for this chapter 35. 4 more questions and I'm going to figure that out, but definitely I want you to have a working understanding regarding so iron, magnesium, nitrogen. So iron is Fe, right, as far as it's represented for the element. Component of cytochromes. So deficiency causes chlorosis. So it affects as far as the presentation of the coloring of the leaf. So primarily what we're seeing is green, right? But in the case of a deficiency of iron, it's going to affect as far as creating a yellowing, results from a lack of chlorophyll, right? The actual pigment present in order to actually produce, the coloration of our plants that we see as far as the green color. Magnesium, so also a component of chlorophyll, right? Deficiency causes a pale color, stunted growth. Okay, so not only just affecting the coloration as far as magnesium, but also the actual growth. And then nitrogen. And again, remember that nitrogen, as far as present within the air, the atmosphere, it's like 70% nitrogen. Okay, oxygen is only in the 20 percentile range as far as the percentages of the gases present within the atmosphere. So nitrogen essential for the synthesis of amino acids. And I said to you earlier today that as far as protein metabolism is concerned, nitrogen and nitrogenous wastes are present within the waste products of the protein metabolism present within living organisms. So you see here chlorophylls and other compounds vital to plant metabolism. Deficiency also causes chlorosis, but primarily, and you'll see here the difference, in older leaves first. Okay. So iron, magnesium, nitrogen. This again will be a question on your final exam from this slide right here. Now, fertilizers are concerned, and I don't know about you, but I buy different like Miracle Grow and such for just our outdoor plants as far as our flowers and such. And so you'll see here as far as that I'm sure we've all noticed, right? The percentages here, right? So like, you see a 15, 30, 15. And so what does that mean as far as the numerical shorthand there? So it represents nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, okay? Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So you should know that. That would be an important thing to know, because that's going to be something that you can carry with you, not only just for the class, but also for just out in real life as far as when you're working with and trying to buy fertilizer, whether it be for your grass or for your your lawn, or for your plants, your house plants, or say for in your garden, right? And so there's different combinations of these elements here needed for proper plant growth. So you see here, soils are more likely to be deficient in nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And I always just see it as like, as far as looking at these terms here, right, as far as the elements are concerned. So as far as alphabetical order, right, so nitrogen, then you have phosphorus, and then you have potassium. pH comes before PO, so nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, NPP. And as far as for the numerical shorthand here, so nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Okay. Some other essential minerals are, or some other essential minerals, than to contain too much. So here's the deal, that they focus on these 3, and if they replace and replenish these 3 within the soil that you're trying to grow your plants in, whether again it be outdoor, indoor, or plants that you grow for as far as vegetables and such, you'll see that these are 3 very essential elements needed in order for them to grow healthy. As far as soil is concerned, okay, so again too, this is a very simple statement here, but one to be thinking about, as far as soil will anchor the plant roots and the main source of inorganic nutrients, right? So we're going to gather up water, we're going to gather up minerals through the roots, through the root system, into the shoot system, into the plant itself, as far as its stems and leaves, and important for then the actual also stability of the plant, right? Anchoring it. So soils develop due to weathering of rock and inorganic particles in the Earth's crust. This also makes sense, and we've all seen areas within the geography in which we live where there are areas where you'll see erosion taking place and weathering of the rocks and the inorganic particles. So I live in an area in Pennsylvania we call the Slate Belt, which is quite interesting. So we have quarries and areas of, a lot of this slate visible as you're just driving through the land in the countryside and such. It's pretty cool stuff. Not everywhere, but there are specific areas that they've done quarrying of slate for a long, long time, and was at one time really a big part of the industry as far as in the area in Pennsylvania in which I live. So soil, source of water, and for most plants we get it. Oxygen for respiration in root cells, right? Actually being absorbed into the root system. The physical structure of soil, factor whether root systems have access to sufficient water and dissolved oxygen, okay? Physical and chemical properties of soils have a major impact on the ability of plants to grow, survive, and reproduce. And folks, I mean, just again, all these statements are very, yeah, it makes total sense, right? Because the importance of the supportive factor as well as the water and oxygen and mineral factor entering into the root systems in order for the plant to thrive, very important. And containing again the essential and the essential nutrients as far as macro and micronutrients, very important. So here you see an example of, and let's minimize this for a moment. So the weathering of rock, a combination of physical, chemical, and biological weathering, slowly generating soil from these limestone formations in Turkey. Okay, that's just showing you an example of. And this will become then a part of the surrounding soil throughout that whole geographical area. So complex mix, and we get that also, that we realize that there's many particles present within the soil. I don't know, I like to, when I do any type of gardening and such, I like to get down in the ground and work with the soil and do some weeding myself by hand. I don't know, I just kind of like the whole physical action of doing that and such, and really being able to see, and I used to like to, as a kid, I don't know, I just like to, we would like to dig around in such in areas, and we'd set up our little army men and such in areas, and I don't know, but like we'd create and dig and build little mounds and such, and just fun stuff. But I like digging in the ground anyhow. You could see that there's many and really a diverse, complex mixture of things, of particles present within the soil. So mineral particles, chemical compounds, ions, decomposing organic matter. So yes, can you see like the decomposing organic matter present within? You can see the mycorrhizae present and the root systems of the grass present and of the fungi present. That's also enabling the increase in the surface area of absorption for the root system, and we're going to look at that at the end of this chapter today. As far as air, water, assorted living organisms, and I as a kid I fished a whole lot, and I liked just digging in the dirt and such and looking for the different as far as worms and such, right, that you would use for your fishing and such, live bait. So you'll see here, as far as soils develop from the physical or chemical weathering of rock, we showed you that there, just as far as the image before. You'll see here organic compounds of soil include what's called humus, right? Not what you eat as far as like the Middle Eastern type of chichi beans or garbanzo beans that are mashed up into, no, different. Decomposing parts of plants and animals, animal droppings, and other organic matter. Has a loose texture and retains water well, right? So this is a very important component of more of the superficial layers of the soil. So we're going to see here as far as, so relative proportions of different sizes of mineral particles give soil its basic texture. So whether it's gritty, whether it's smooth, whether it's dense and heavy. So we've all, as far as if we had to do any type of digging, my kids, my daughter in particular, has had many animals over the years, right? And so we actually raised rabbits for quite a few years, and she does that now on her own since she's been married. But we've had to also like bury, animals that have passed on and such, and so depending upon where the soil that you're digging in the property upon which we live and have lived in the past. You'll see there are different uh, densities and textures to the soil that you're digging into. You'll see here clay soils, right? Sticky when wet, few air spaces. Sandy soils, more air spaces, dry quickly, may wash or blow away. I had the opportunity. My brother had an appendicitis many years ago when we were both in high school, not in high school, in college. And for 1 month, I took over his job that he worked for a mason, stonemason, and I helped that gentleman for a full month. And the areas that we would actually have to be, you'd have to do quite a bit, not a lot because you'd have equipment, but we'd also have to at times take a shovel and just dig into the soil. And quite interesting, the different soils that you'd be exposed to depending upon where in New Jersey we were in putting in a wall, a set of stairs, a sidewalk. Quite interesting, actually, really. And so this texture, basic texture of the soil, really dependent upon what's present. So you'll see here as far as the sand, silt, clay, determine the soil type, okay? So we're going to look in just a moment as far as the layers. You'll see here also that bacteria and fungi decompose dead plant parts and other organic matter, and earthworms aerate the soil. So really, bacteria, fungi, different little worms and such, nematodes, we call them nematodes, present within the soil, and all little types of tiny little bugs and insects and such that are crawling through. We used to like these little bugs called potato bugs, we would call them. They're like these little oval shaped bugs that would be creeping and crawling through the soil and such. And if you picked up a rock, you'd usually see a bunch of them underneath the rock. They liked that, and they would be digging around into that area there. Really important for the ability to aerate the soil and allow for then oxygen to be able to, there we said that the root systems will not only absorb the minerals and the water, but also oxygen into them, and allow for that also to enable the plant to be healthy and grow well. So when we say soil horizons, we're talking about layers of soil, okay? So you'll see here that the top layer of a surface layer of the soil, the zero horizon. The A horizon would be the topsoil. Now, so I put here, I think it's easier for many of us to think in terms of inches, but if centimeters help you, 4 to 12 inches would be considered the topsoil. And that would make sense at that top layer, right? Humus, right? That humus is mixed in with the mineral particles. So this is, recall, again, we showed you here, as far as the decomposing parts of plants and animals, animal droppings and other organic matter. That's the humus. So that's mixed in with the topsoil, the 4 to 12 inch layer of that very top layer of the soil, okay? Which is right with that surface litter, meaning the surface litter would be, so like right now, like there's I have some leaves on some aspect of my property that have just like got blown around from other areas of the neighborhood and such. And so that would be the surface litter, okay, present. Anything else that's, just blown around and such, but it's the topsoil itself. This is the actual layer, the top layer, composed of this humus with this organic matter mixed with minerals, where roots of most the plants are located. Subsoil, below that, 4 to 12 inches, right? There's little organic matter, larger particles, minerals ions, contains roots of mature trees, layer below that 4 to 12 inches of that topsoil, okay? And then you'll have here the other layer. Knowing these two layers, I think, would be important for you to know, okay? And so you're seeing here as far as the topsoil, the subsoil, and this horizon layer there, this lower layer, mineral particles, rock fragments extend down to the bedrock, the foundation of the actual ground itself, okay? Now, water availability. This is an important thing. So around in our area here, yes, I can recall over the years, again, knowing the farmers and such, when there was a rough summer, spring was wet, but there could be springs where it's not so wet and not receiving as much of the precipitation as they were expecting. Farmers would have to determine whether they should get insurance or not for their crops. And really they'd have to depend upon many different factors, which I can't even remember, to be honest, but they would do a lot of research before, investing money into insurance to insure their crops or not. And, there's a gamble there. And I recall one year where friends of ours from church, he has quite a large farm operation even to this day. And he took out insurance for that year. And sure enough, there was a rough year as far as precipitation, and the crop yield was very low. And yet, because he had the insurance, it really helped preserve his farm operation and his family. And so, water availability is a big deal. I know when we like to go to Delaware and Maryland for vacation time, as far as to the beach, right? Ocean City, Maryland, Bethany Beach, and those surrounding beaches down there. And as we drive down there from home, we will see that down in Delaware in particular, there are many operations as far as farms are concerned that irrigate and such, and that have means of watering their crops, because there are issues with precipitation in those areas. And so they don't want to just blindly depend upon the rain, what's going to happen with the weather. So they'll irrigate and such to make sure that they have enough water for their crops. So the availability, the amount of water in soil solution depends largely on the amount and pattern of precipitation in a region, right? And so this is a big deal. And how about also like in California? California, water availability is a huge issue, folks. And so I can recall I was stationed out in California, Northern California, for 4 months when I was in the Coast Guard. I went to cooking school out there. And I can recall in my travels throughout the state that we went down to Southern California, went to a cool festival called the US Festival. This is going back in the 80s, 82. It was like one of the, kind of like a, what would you call it? Like a Woodstock kind of a thing, but for, the 80s generation. Anyhow, I remember traveling down to Southern California and seeing on the sides of the road fires, like little patches of fire, because it was so dry and there was lack of precipitation that these fires would grow. And it was really hot down there also. So precipitation, so water availability, huge. And so plants will adapt to this. And so those cam plants really, as far as cacti and such, they really can live in very extreme environments and still, take whatever available water is present in order to survive. So you'll see here, as far as sustainable agriculture and soil management, so heavy reliance on chemical fertilizers. However it may be, in order to make a living, right? You need to grow, and there are times when, the soil is depleted after so many generations of working the soil that you do need fertilizer. So although farmers have long understood the need to replenish soil minerals with fertilizer, pressure to improve crop yields has led to heavy reliance on chemical fertilizers. Okay, and so that's a challenge indeed. You'll see here that fertilizers may also cause major pollution problems, nitrogen-rich runoff from cropland as a result of fertilizers. You can have overgrowth of algae in lakes and bays as a result of this. Hey, we realize again too, without crops, there's no food, right? And so there needs to be a balance of working with our farmers and supporting our farmers. I see that as vital, and not harassing them and giving a hard time, but coming alongside and helping them and developing different technology in order to make farming as safe as possible for all, for the environment, for all of us, as far as the food supply and such. So, it's easy to just say negative things about a group of people at times. I'm not saying there are, but just saying that, that can happen, though. You can see that in the news or in papers or in different types of advertising or whatever, that, one group will go against another for this. Hey, again, too, we need to support our farmers. We need to support a healthy food source as far as what our farms provide for us all. And so, being supportive and having technology and research in order to make sure that we're as safe as possible for ourselves as far as also our environment, and being respectful of our environment, very important also, right? We are custodians of our environment, and so we should care about what goes on in the world in which we live, without a doubt. You'll see here as far as soil erosion due to improper tilling, deforestation, and combination of those factors. So tilling meaning referring to plowing to remove plant material remaining from a previous crop and to create rows for new seeding and such, right? So just basic understanding of what that means. And also know that like as far as the care of the topsoil and erosion and movement of soils from one area to another because of if they're not properly protected. So like whenever there's any type of building going on, as far as for new structures and such, there needs to be also part of that whole planning as far as what are you going to do with wastewater. So if I have a huge field and I'm going to put a warehouse in that field, right? So then we have to determine that, well, and this is an engineer having to determine this, some type of engineers, that they'll have to figure out as far as, well, what's going to happen with the runoff, because when there was soil present, the soil was able to absorb the water from the rain and from the water's precipitation. But now that it's covered in macadam, in blacktop, and in building and such, what's going to happen to that? And you have all have seen large structures, and then you've seen that there are areas that they have that are kind of, I forget what they're called. I'm sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's, you know, like where water will be directed and drained into an area in order to protect surrounding areas so that flooding doesn't occur in the surrounding areas. So erosion and the management of the waters that do come down as far as precipitation, very important. You see here, so no-till farming, this is interesting. So search for ways to remedy these ills while maintaining necessary food crop production has sparked a movement towards sustainable agriculture. So no-till farming. Fields are replanted using techniques that are less physically destructive to the soil and retain the nutrient-dense remains of a previous season's crop. So that's interesting, right? Precision agricultural technologies to manage crop production. I believe that as far as I believe in Doylestown, PA, there's a school, and I'm trying to remember, it's a college. It'll come to me. But there's a college that deals with a lot of agriculture and such. And so learning about how to properly manage fields and properly manage and maintain crops and such can be learned. Oh man, it'll come to me, folks. I'll get it. I'll get to that information. I'm blanking on it. Does anybody know offhand that they can remember as far as in that area, the college that, oh, darn, I'm sorry. It'll come to me though. You see here, as far as this is interesting. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Mary. Thank you. As far as Del Val, yeah, thank you. Phytoremediation. So plants are also used to remove potentially toxic heavy metals from soil, right? And so this could be a method that's done. So, you know, research is being done, and there is still a lot of science involved in trying to help our farming community in order to be as safe as possible and also to create as best possible safe yields, also in maintaining the soil and the ground. Now, and here we're looking at as far as, so supportive as far as the fungi are concerned, and these symbiotic relationship between fungus and the actual root systems of the plants. So you see here the mycorrhiza, and so we think myco, think fungi. So symbiotic associations between fungus and the roots of a plant that promote the uptake of water and ions, especially phosphates. And you'll see here as well also like increasing the surface area for the absorption. So provide a huge surface area for absorption, okay, by the hyphae, right, that are present of the fungi that are present deep within the substrate, the soil. Some of the plant's sugars, nitrogenous compounds, nourish the fungus as the roots grow. It uses some of the minerals obtained by the fungus. So you see here that there's this symbiotic, both benefit from this relationship, right? And so many plants and their root systems work in conjunction with fungi. You'll see here, and I'd like you to know these two right here, as far as, so another question, so we have 6, so definitely this one as far as the Mycorrhizae and specific specific ecto and endo. So I want you to know the difference between. So you'll see here that ecto mycorrhizae there are specific types of mycorrhizae in which fungal hyphae, right? Those are those little extensions of the fungus remain, and they look similar to a root, remain outside the cells in the root cortex. Endomycorrhizae, so whenever you see the term ecto or endo would be in the outer portion, endo would be inner, so hyphae will pass through the walls of cells in the root cortex. So if you can know the difference between those two, that would be a good question on the final exam. So that's 7 out of 10 on the final exam. All right, and and as far as the last 3, that'll definitely, and I'll also put this as far as in the review for your final exam review by tomorrow night there. Close to 90% of plants, including nearly all angiosperms, right, benefit from endomycorrhizae. So the hyphae actually pass through the cells of the walls in the root cortex itself, in the roots themselves. So there is this symbiotic relationship, this healthy relationship where both benefit from the relationship. And here I provided as far as the images showing you as far as the ecto, right? And then as far as the endo, see how there's a penetration within the cells of the root for the endomycorrhizae, right? Pretty cool stuff. And I think that there's another couple questions. Yeah, another few more slides to go and we're done for today. So you see here as far as the dependence on bacteria for nitrogen. Okay, so again, nitrogen being a nutrient that's essential. So lack of nitrogen is the single most common limit to plant growth. All right, so that's an important statement right there. Right, nitrogen, single most common limit to plant growth. Plants can absorb nitrogen from the soil in the form of nitrates or ammonium produced by bacteria. So so waste products of bacterial metabolism, these nitrates and ammonium, and very important for the nitrogen cycle and for the plants to actually have their ability to grow healthy. So you'll see here, as far as, not going to ask you to memorize this or to process this, but just to see, as far as I said to you, that the atmosphere, approximately 70% nitrogen as far as gases are concerned. So atmospheric nitrogen, right? And you'll see here as far as that there's also the contribution of within the soil as far as bacteria is concerned, producing and adding to the nitrogen present within the air, right? And you'll see here as far as ammonium, as far as nitrate and ammonium, nitrate converted to ammonium, which in turn will move into via the xylem, right? Because what's present within the root system, the xylem, in order to take up nutrients, in order to take up as far as the minerals and the water is concerned into the root system and bring it up to the shoot system, okay? So bacterium important for that as far as for nitrogen is concerned. That's an important thing that you should know as far as a statement there. So, and lastly, this is the last one as far as the unusual modes of nutrition. So have you ever been on, like at night, and you're just kind of crashing before you go to sleep and you're just on YouTube looking at, whatever's coming up in your thing there as far as your feed and what they recommend to you as far as what to watch. And I could recall, just because of doing research regarding plants and such, and just trying to refresh my memory regarding information, information regarding fly traps and such, and so different types of carnivorous plants and people feeding their plants insects and such. It's just wacky stuff. You'll see here, carnivorous plants survive in nitrogen deficient environments such as bogs and sand through elaborate mechanisms for extracellular digestion absorption. So this is important to remember. Extracellular digestion and absorption. So Venus flytrap, sundews capture and digest insects, right? In the actual, the one portion of the plant, the flowering plant will attract, and then there'll be enzymes and solutions present within secretions in order to externally digest, but then they'll take, once they've been digested, then they'll take those nutrients and absorb them into the plant itself, Cobra Lily, tropical pitcher plants form a pitcher with downward pointing leaf hairs, which will prevent then anything that gets stuck within from escaping. And a slick coating that speeds larger prey spread. I don't know. That's kind of, I don't know why it says that, but allows for larger prey into a pool of digestive enzyme. Again, extracellular. So we would have digestion that's what present with, as far as humans, within. This is extracellular, this is outside of, and then will then be absorbed as far as nutrients are concerned. So vines and other flowering plants are parasitic. Okay, so we have here as far as these carnivorous plants. How about parasitic type plants? So they obtain nutrients from the tissues of other plants. So you'll see here as far as that there are different plants that'll have these roots that'll penetrate deep into the host root, tap into its vascular tissues. That's pretty crazy, right? How about also like something like mistletoe contains chlorophyll and can photosynthesize. Dodders are non-photosynthesizers, so they'll rob the host of sugars as well as water and minerals. So interesting. So vines, if you've ever seen a vine on a plant and being able to absorb the nutrients from it and actually kill the plant over time, or a vine wrapped around a tree, where a huge tree can be destroyed by a vine. And it can take many years for that to occur. You're seeing here's that Cobra Lily, where there would be present within the extracellular digestion, the digestive juices would be present in order to process any type of insect and such. Here's an example of a vines are concerned and invading the root. Snow plant. So let me read about the snow plant here. This I don't recall. As far as, let's see here. So the snow plant pops up in the deep humus. Let me move this up here. Deep humus of shady conifer forests after snow has melted in spring. This species lacks chlorophyll, hence, it doesn't have the green coloration. It does not photosynthesize. Instead, its roots intertwine with the hyphae of soil fungi that also form associations with the roots of nearby conifers. And radiocarbon studies showed that fungi take up sugars and other nutrients from the trees and pass a portion of this food to the snow plant. So quite interesting, right? You'll see here also, and that would be parasitic. As far as, here we have the lady of the night orchid. Okay, orchids are pretty, they really are. This is a tropical epiphyte. So epiphyte grows on another plant, but not parasitic. Okay. And that will be it for this